Is there any rhyme or reason to the book of Proverbs? It seems to be pearls on a string with only a very loose connection between verses. Am I right?
Joshua, in one way, you're exactly right. Beginning with Proverbs chapter 10 through the end, the virtuous woman poem in chapter 31, by and large, we just have different pearls on a string. There isn't a lot of connecting links in these chapters. But in chapters 1 through 9 in the book of Proverbs, there is very much of a narrative or a storyline, and that is the father instructing his son about the way of wisdom as opposed to the way of Dame Folly. Let's look at this in its broader context. As we noted in our discussion on the book of Leviticus, we certainly see Israel's life founded and flowing out of her worship, out of the gifts of sacrifice, indeed, Yahweh's means of grace to deliver, empower, and forgive people. But we also said in that lecture that Israel had the book of Psalms to joyfully celebrate or with great bitterness lament their condition before their God. So we have hymnody, we have liturgy and sacrifice and sacrament. But we also have, growing out of that life with Yahweh at the temple through Leviticus, through Psalms, a very wise life, a very practical life, a very hands-on existence. And that's the book of Proverbs. We wouldn't want to read the book of Proverbs in isolation, as though Israel was only concerned with right and wrong living. No, this would be understood more in terms of Israel's sanctified life. Once being justified and redeemed and receiving God's means of grace, this is how Israel lives in the world in very tangible ways. Having said that, we might say that Yahweh gave Torah, instruction, initially to Moses. He gave his word to the prophets, but he gave wisdom to the wise men. To have wisdom means to know where you fit in the world. That's the definition in a nutshell. Where do I fit in creation? I'm a creature, not creator. Where do I fit in the family? Where do I fit as a child? Where do I fit in the marketplace? What's my role as a witness to a crime? How do I fit when it comes to dealing with animals? What's my role? Now, having made those brief introductory remarks, I'd like us now to look at 6 themes in the book of Proverbs that will help us perhaps get a better handle on this, realizing again that 1 through 9 is a narrative, story. 10 through 31, as you said, Joshua, it's only on a loose string that we see these Proverbs connected. Well, the first theme of Proverbs is this. Proverbs 1 verse 7 is where it's articulated best. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Wisdom and discipline fools despise. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge and wisdom. Now, what does that mean, the fear of the Lord? It doesn't mean that we're scared of Him. It doesn't mean that we're frightened from Him. Yirat Yahweh in Hebrew, the fear of the Lord, is the sum and substance of a believer's proper response to God. It's better understood awe, respect, adoration of the Lord. Because you see, when I'm in that posture, I understand He's God and I'm not. That's a major theme in the book of Proverbs. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge and wisdom, understanding that He is a God to be revered and respected and awed and held in high esteem. Another theme in Proverbs is perhaps stated best in Proverbs 24, verse 16. The righteous falls 7 times and gets up, but the wicked are brought down by calamity. Proverbs says that righteous people fall. Righteous people have problems. Righteous people make mistakes, but they get up and keep going. It's the wicked that are brought down by calamity. One of the major themes in many of the Proverbs is to keep on keeping on. Never quit. Keep on listening to Yahweh's voice in the Torah. Keep on fearing, respecting, adoring Yahweh in worship. But don't give up just because you've fallen. Another theme in the book of Proverbs is a huge messianic theme, best articulated in Proverbs 8, verse 22, where wisdom is talking, and she says, and I might pause here, in Hebrew, chokmah, the word for wisdom, is a feminine singular noun. So wisdom, as I already have indicated, in chapters 1 through 9 especially, is portrayed as a woman, you see, because it's a feminine noun. So that's why she's called Lady Wisdom as opposed to Dame Folly, especially in chapter 9 of Proverbs. But wisdom, she says about the Lord begot me at the creation of His way. That's Proverbs 8, verse 22. Now, we could easily read that and say, what is the big deal here? Well, this is not a big messianic verse for us, but in the tremendously important Christological debates of the 4th century A.D., when Arius was discussing the nature of Christ with Athanasius. This was Athanasius's primary text to talk about the deity of Christ. And that Christ was begotten from the Father because Athanasius understood that wisdom is actually a shadow, a prefigurement of Christ. Again, Proverbs 8:22 says, as wisdom is talking, the Lord begot me as the first of His works. Paul talks about Christ being our wisdom in 1 Corinthians 1, verse 31. He also continues this theme in Colossians 1, verses 14 through 17. But suffice it to say that just as we have been seeing that Christ fulfills the promises and the institutions and the people and the events of the Old Testament, so He is the fulfillment of wisdom. For to have Christ is to have true wisdom and understanding in life. Well, another theme in Proverbs is that it's better to have the fear of Yahweh, the respect of Yahweh, than great treasures and great wealth. That's expressed best in Proverbs 15, verse 16. Proverbs wants me to have the right priorities in life. It may be summarized much like how Jesus speaks in Matthew 6:33. Seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you as well. Proverbs wants me to get my priorities straight. My relationship with God is first, not the gaining of great riches. Another theme in Proverbs is this: life in the family. As I said, Proverbs 1 through 9 would be 9 discourses of a father talking to a son. But also in the second part of the book, Paul, we have verses like this in 13, verse 1. A wise son receives discipline from his father, but a fool does not listen to his instruction. Proverbs wants children to learn from the parents, both mother and father. A neat connection to the fourth commandment. Finally, as we simply summarize this book, Proverbs is huge when it comes to use of human language. Classically put this way in Proverbs 18:21, life and death are in the power of the tongue. This is a major theme in the book. That the tongue is like nuclear energy. Nuclear energy can destroy entire cities, entire populations, if it's used in the wrong way. But nuclear energy can also be used to give life, to harness its vast power and provide electricity to run all of our electric gadgets and to heat and cool and bring light to our homes and businesses. So likewise the tongue. It has death to destroy and it has life that would build up. As a pastor, how I would communicate this when we were talking about the 8th commandment is I'd have several kids come up and I'd ask them, let's have a relay race. And I'd have 2 full tubes of toothpaste. And I'd say, which of these 2 contestants can squeeze out the toothpaste the fastest? And they'd raise their hand on contestant 1 or contestant 2. And then I'd say, go. And these kids would squeeze the toothpaste out as fast as they could, trying to get some kind of prize that I'd conjured up. And then I'd say, okay, great, here's our winner. I want 2 more people to come forward as volunteers. Now, this is the challenge. Take these empty tubes of toothpaste, and how fast can you fill them up with the toothpaste that is on the floor? Well, at that point, I didn't have too many volunteers, because that, as we all know, is impossible. See, that's human language. Once it's squeezed out of our mouth, there's no way to get it back. Loose lips sink ships. This is a major theme in the book of Proverbs. And we can see, just parenthetically speaking, that it should not surprise us in the New Testament that the major wisdom book is the book of James. And James chapter 3, verses 1 through 11 is all about the power of the tongue. Well, there's several themes in the book of Proverbs to help us get some kind of feel for what's there as we go about this ongoing journey of the Old Testament.